Our first speaker is our Vice President, Ms. Comrade Felicia Dujon, Spokesperson on Education.
Good evening, comrades. Good evening, comrades. I know you can do better than that. Good evening, comrades. Yes, we have to let them know that we very much are alive and well. We are here and our presence will be felt every constituency that we go to. I can't see it, sir. I will eventually go there. Okay. I wish to acknowledge two of our candidates in the room, so please stand, fellow comrades. Needs to acknowledge. We need to give them every support that we have. We have to ensure that regardless of which constituency that they represent, that we provide them with every support that we have. It is our responsibility and our role as members of this great party. Comrades, this evening I may have to put on a different hat because I think it is important, I think it's imperative that we speak on issues that affect our society, issues that affect our community, and issues that affect us directly. And those matters primarily has to deal with our children. I think every member in this room right now has a child somewhere at home, related in the community. And we find that we have a responsibility and we have a duty to protect them. And that duty does not only mean physical protection, but also we have a duty to protect the people in this government that believe that they are doing the right thing when it comes to the education of our children. We have seen for the last 2 years that this government has no interest in the education of our children. We have seen a decline in the performances of our children. We have seen children are too afraid to go to school. And now we are seeing that teachers are too afraid to leave their homes because of fear of they being violated by their own students. As a teacher myself, it makes me wonder, where is the fragment of our society? Where is the fabric of our society? And primarily, where are we headed as a society? Our society has been in a crisis from the very first time that this government took the reins of government. If we have not recognized this as yet, I'm not sure how longer it will take. This government has been in, I would not even say power or governance, but they have been in a position that has dominated our homes, our schools, and our society for the last 7 years. And I do not believe that we as a society can take it any longer. I believe our children at our crisis, I believe that they too cannot take it any longer. And I believe even for us, deep down our subconscious tells us that something is not right in this society. We can see it, we can hear it, and we can feel it. No one has to tell us that at this point in our lives that this country, our beloved country, is at a crisis. It's at a crisis not only in education, it is at a crisis for agriculture, for food security. It is at a crisis for public safety and security. But we have a Minister of International Travels that seem not concerned to anything that is happening in this country. And I think tonight we have to take what we call introspective and recognize that it is our duty as the Democratic Labour Party to take the reins of this government. We can no longer afford to spend another year, another month, another day under this government, because every day when we open our newspaper is a crisis. Every ministry is a crisis. And if I may be allowed to say that, I want to thank Mr. Ralph Thorne personally. I know he's not there, but when he comes, remind him that I thanked him publicly for coming to assist us in this battle. I mean, know that many of you may not understand the kinds of work that has been done since Mr. Thorne has joined us. And we need to thank him because it took courage to do what he did. And because of his courage, many of us became even more courageous. And we're seeing it in every aspect of our society, that we have the right to speak, and no one will silence us, not even if they try. They could no longer silence us when we want better for our children, when we want better for our grandchildren, when we expect them to allocate funding and do what they say that they will do with that funding. Because what we will be discussing today, because every year we go through those texts, this book, this 800 and something pages. And this basically tells us where our taxpayers' funding is going. And it is our duty to look and find where every single penny is going. And if they cannot account for it, we will hold them accountable. And this is what we are responsible for doing. This is why we have to support our leader of the opposition. We have to support him. We have to support our senators. We have to support our candidates. We have to support every member of our party, as well as every citizen in this country, including members of the Barbados Labour Party. The reason why I'm saying that, because we know that they too are suffering, but they're not going to say it. Not only that they're frightened, but they know that they made an error in judgment. They made an error in judgment. And because of that, we have to pardon them. Because as human beings, we are born to err. It is in our human nature. Because we did not expect. We know as the Democratic Labour Party, we know what they were. But they did not expect that kind of wastage of government and an uncaring, vindictive government. This is a government that do not put your interests at heart. And I want you to take close note as what is happening within our society. It's not only to deal with the matters of crime, and we hear crime all the time, but crime is a symptom of the mismanagement of this government. Because what they have been doing is what we call a facade. It's an illusion. They make us appear that they're doing work, but we're knowing that nothing is being done. We know that. They told us that the economy is growing. Where is it growing? Not in our pockets, maybe on the flights, but not in our pockets. We recognize what is happening in our schools. And today, one of the main things that I wanted to do, and I want you to take critical analysis of this. For the last year or so, this government has not debated the Ministry of Education in Parliament. And this is going to be the second year that they're doing this, because they feel that we as citizens do not have the right to know where the money is being allocated for education, because they're a government of friends and family and everything else that comes with it. And the reality is that we have the right to know if we are going to spend $500 million on education and we cannot see the results, we have to hold them accountable. We need the Minister of Education to tell us where every cent is being spent. Every cent. We cannot be giving you $5 million every year. And these are the conditions of our children's schools. We see it. We recognize it. I have brought it to the attention of the public what our children have to endure every single day. And then we worry why our children are so restless in schools, why they cannot function adequately in schools. They have to be in environments that is conducive for learning. We all went through the education system, and we could imagine being in classrooms and with leaking roofs, being in classrooms where there's rodents, being in classrooms where there's bees, both sex. But the reality is that we have to understand that a learning environment is conducive for having healthy education. It is important. But one of the things that I wanted to touch, I'm just going to use my slide, because I think I want to show you exactly what this government has been doing to us. And then they're going to play that they're doing us, what they call it? They're doing us a favor. We elected you. Well, not me. We didn't. We didn't. But the people and the citizens elected you as a duty to serve the people and the country, not to serve yourself, not to disregard their concerns. And one of the things that I want us to pay attention to is the money. You know, we know she loves money, right? They love money. But it's not their money, it is our taxpayers' money. This is our money that we work for. And we have the right to know where every single, if I have to say, black cent is going. And the reality is that I took the opportunity to go through the estimates. And every year, we see the millions. And this year it's even worse. We're in billions now. And you know what that's going to happen to us? This is a government of taxation without validation. They do not validate. Why are they taxing you? You know we're getting taxed, but we don't see it. Other people may be seeing it, but it's not us. It's not the citizens. Because they do not regard us as equal partners in this country. And so it's very important that we take note of what is happening when it comes to the Education Act. The Education Act in itself, it is not something arbitrary. It is a law. It means that the Minister of Education must abide by the law. And there have been several breaches, and I know that you know quite a number of them. And Springer Memorial is just a year ago. And some of us forgot. These are the same individuals that are still in leadership positions within this society. And what we have done, we have pardoned them. Or some of us have forgotten the violations that they have continued to do against our children. So one of the things that I wanted to look at is the expenditure of this government. Because since they do not want to bring it in Parliament, we will bring it in our own environment. Somebody did something. Thank you. Thank you. I brought the PowerPoint because I want you to see how much money is being spent. And they do not feel the need to bring it to Parliament to explain to you what is the Minister of Education doing with that kind of money. Okay? Over $400 million every year. And for this year alone, 2025, 2026, Soon it will be 500 million, and it will increase. It will increase. But the question I want you to ask yourself, the Ministry of Education gets almost 4%, even almost the highest of the budget allocation. But have you seen the benefits in our education system? Our children, are they being fed correctly? Are we having enough security guards at the schools? Is there enough infrastructure at the schools? Are teachers being paid better? Do they have the adequate resources in the classrooms? Do our children, do they have the different devices that they need in the classrooms? And let's not even talk about transportation. And we see the levels of violence in school, thank you, comrade. And then we wonder why our children are exhibiting such antisocial behavior within the society, within the schools. It's systematic, because the money that is supposed to be allocated, and as I said before, I've been walking around with this. Every year when we get it, it is our duty to go for it, because I want to see where every cent is being spent. And they tell us $1 million here, and $1 million here, and 800,000. You saw what they happened at Grantley Adams? Almost how much? $500,000. $500,000. But they cannot account specifically how was it spent. Comrades, this is our money. And the question that I'm going to ask you, how long are we going to allow them to take advantage of citizens within the society? Because we can see it, we could know, but the reality is that they will not bring it to Parliament, because they know that our honorable political leader will take them to task. They know that our senator will take them to task. Let me acknowledge our senator this evening. Don't mind them, you know. They know they have a task at hand. They are afraid of them. When they know it's their time to speak, boy, I tell you, they can't sleep, you know. And they know that. Because when we come, these are noble men. These are noble men, and when they come verily researched. These are men of integrity. And they have the ability to be transparent in every transaction. So we know that members of the Democratic Labour Party, we're not sending anyone to them. They're core representatives of the reflection of who we are. Like we would say, they're not poppy show people. They're not the kind of poppy show we see in government right now. So when we see that kind of money being allocated, and there's no account for it, and then we wonder why we're seeing students are not performing the way that they do. So I want you to see that violence in school is systematic for the mismanagement of funds. If you have a bad manager that is not using the funds correctly, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen to employees? What do you think is going to happen in terms of productivity? And this is what we're seeing. We have a bad, poor manager at the Ministry of Education that has needed to be fired a very long time ago. But I will go ahead and show you. You remember education reform sometime last year? Remember they had a big show and people were dancing, all the glitz and lights and action was happening. Yeah. That's the first time I actually saw the minister of, the CEO of education dancing on a stage. I almost thought it was a circus happening. But it was supposed to be education reform. We were supposed to be reforming education. But what was very important is that there was money allocated for education reform. And I remember not too long ago, good evening, acknowledgement of our other candidate. There was money allocated for education reform. So don't think all the dancing and all the merrymaking on stage was done for free. There was money allocated for that unit. And so every unit in that department, that was a special unit, education reform, $40 million. 40 million. And I keep counting. We keep counting. So that was from 2021. And so you can almost imagine what will happen this year. And we remember very recently, the director for education reform said, we have to take a halt right now. We can't move forward. So what does that mean? What happened to that $40 million? What happened to it? After all the merrymaking and all of that glitz and glance that we will do educational reform and Academy of Excellence and all these wonderful words to trick and fool the people, $40 million from your taxes, from your salaries, that you thought that parents and citizens, good law-abiding citizens, felt that something good would come out of that if you're taking the taxes from me. But what has happened now? The unit is now telling the public, in the public domain, without any conscience, to tell us, well, there's nothing we can do about it right now. We'll have to halt this initiative after all of these funds have been spent. 40 million is no little money, you know. That's not 5 cents or $2. $40 million wasted. A government of wastage. And this is what we're seeing, not only in education. The only reason I brought up education because they're not going to debate it in Parliament. She's not going to dare bring her best friend and buddy under the microscope so that the people will have the ability to judge accurately what has been done with those funds. 40 million for education sector enhancement, reform, change management. All of those units and nothing to show for it. But if you go on YouTube right now, you'll see the chief education officer and everybody else was dancing on that day, having a wonderful time, while our children cannot sit in an environment that is conducive for learning, that they cannot even take the opportunity. You know how much 40 million can do for our children in classes? You know how much 40 million could do for some children and their parents that cannot afford to send children to school? Comrades, we have to seriously consider why we have to win this next election. This is what we mean. This is what we have to do. We cannot allow this government to continue to act as pirates in the pockets of citizens. We cannot allow that. The days of piracy is done. We have to remind them that this is their last term in government. And if we cannot do it for ourselves, we have to do it for the children. We have to do it for them. And you know, as an advocate for children, you know I will be marching behind them because the children deserve better. Whoever voted for that group did not realize the consequences it would have had on our children. And just remember that this government was in, I don't even know what to call it. I can't even call it governance, power, regime, because sometimes they act like a regime. But at the same time, we recognize they've been there for 7 years. Now, comrades, if you think about it, 7 years ago, when a child was 10, that means that child did common entrance, went to secondary school. That probably, where is that child right now? We have to ask those questions. What has been the impact of that 7 years on our youth and our young persons? And we know that they haven't been doing much in terms of education. And the statistics are there. The facts are there, but they tend not to bring it to us. Education Reform Unit, 2023-2024, $800,000. That is the same education unit that told us, well, after a year, we can't do anything for you. After they've wasted all those funds. But the point is, we need to know where it went. And if you can't tell us now, when we get the reins of government, you will have to tell us where you put it. This is what is going to happen. And now, 2024, we're seeing the same kinds of numbers. $800,000. This is not pennies. This is our hard, you know how hard it is to wake up in the morning? Some of us have to catch bus, take care of our families, and we are making sacrifices. We are making sacrifices because we know things are very hard. But we're not complaining when you're taking the taxes from us. Even if you complain, you're still going to do it anyway. So many taxes every year, you add in taxes, but we're not complaining because we are hoping that you're a government of conscience and that you'll do what is right for the people. But they're not doing that. And we have to remember this is their last term. That's it. If we allow another term, we can almost imagine what it's going to be like in the next, we're not even saying 5, in the next year. So we have to think about what is happening as a society. Change management. The wonderful names. Change management. And they were supposed to be there in terms of education reform. Academy of Excellence. Remember that? The removal of 11 plus. Remember that? Yes. All of those consulting fees. Comrades, there is a time where we can get on a platform and say certain things. But today we have to know where the money is going. This is our money, and this is why we're seeing the symptoms of that kind of behavior. So we're seeing in 2024, 2025, we're seeing $1,500,000. Yes? That was last year, about last year or so. That's change management, $1 million or more. And they're hoping in 2025, 2026, we're seeing $8 million. For the same unit that told us that they cannot do anything for us right now, we have to halt this program. Now they're asking us for $8 million. So when they go in Parliament very soon and debate the estimates, because this is the new estimates, and what is very interesting this time around is that under the change management unit, they're asking us, taxpayers, to give them another $8 million. They already had $1 million. They did absolutely nothing apart from merrymaking and confuse people in the public, because we still do not know whether we're having 11 plus, whether we have an Academy of Excellence. They just confuse everybody, including themselves. But now they're asking for another $8 million. But they have not been able to justify why are we going to give them that $8 million. But do you think our Minister for International Travels will approve that $8 million? Do you believe that the government will approve that $8 million? They will. Remember, friends and family. Friends and family. Everybody else except the citizens that work hard for what they deserve. Comrades, our people deserve better. Our children deserve better. And if we have not recognized that they are not here to serve us, The earlier we recognize that, the better for us. In another sense, we saw the news with special education and the Alma Parish School. Yes, they reopened, and I'm glad they did after so many years. But what was very interesting is that money was being allocated to that school even while it was closed. Yes, it's in the budget. It's in the budget. Because we all saw a few weeks ago they opened up the school, right? But if we look in the budget, we will see there was funding allocated for it. Where is that money? As I said before, we have a duty to ensure that every penny is returned. Every penny is retrieved. We need to know exactly who has it, where did it go, and what was done with it. Remember, who has it, what was done with it, and where did it go? We need to know every aspect of that ministry. We will surgically look in every aspect of it to see where that money has been spent. So as you can see here, we go with facts. It's right there. It's in the estimates. Okay? So 2022-23, there's 1,488,000. And the school, was the school open then? We saw in 2003, 2004, another million. So keep counting. So that's already what? 2,500,000. Within 2 years, that school still was not opened. And then we're seeing no details for 2024, no more details, but the details is now in this where they're asking for more money. But the question that we want to ask is that we expect this government to spend every cent that we give them to ensure that children with special needs get the type of intervention that is required for them. It is our duty as a society to protect every child, including children with special disabilities. And one of the questions that we've been asking, because I saw that they had a wonderful opening and everybody was smiling, but the question that we need to ask, where were those children when those millions were being taken from them? Huh? Millions of dollars. Where were those children? Were they at home within that year? And I could almost imagine how parents may have felt, how those children were disadvantaged. But then we have a minister of education who claims to care. I saw her hugging those children. And it hurt my heart to some extent, because you had millions of dollars and we still cannot account for it. We still cannot account for it. Because we know in the public that school was not open. And one of the things about this government is that every time they do something, they rush to the media. Hey, look at us, we're doing something. And I love it when they do that, because I'm keeping notes. I'm keeping notes. Because we know that all that time the school was closed. Yet millions was being pumped into it. But we're going to ask the same questions. Who has it? What was done with it? And where has it gone? We need to know those questions, and we need to know it very soon. So those kinds of questions, I believe that we need to look at what is happening. And one of the kinds of concerns that we have is the primary school levels. And I know they've had a lot of questions about that, because primary school children, because they come from nursery and then they go to primary school. And so sometimes in primary school, they're almost pre-adolescents. And so there's a lot of dynamics happening at that stage. But what we're seeing fundamentally is the levels of antisocial behavior starts at a very early age. And the statistics and research shows you that children at that age are more vulnerable than even teenagers, because that's when they're developing. That's when they're forming their identity. That's when they get a concept of morality. Right or wrong? Should I do the right thing? And that's why we're seeing all those kinds of questions are being asked. The violence in the schools, the potentiality of drugs being exhibited in those young persons. And I know that some of us may say, well, these children are very young, but remember, they're trying to form their identity. They're trying to find their role models at that age. And so primary school level is the most vulnerable stage in a child's life. Why? Because they say children develop their identity between the ages of 5 until probably 10 and 12. By the time they're teenagers, they have a hang of, semi who they are and what they like and dislike. So at primary school level, we have to be very, very mindful. We have to be very vigilant as to how we mold those young minds. And we also, as a society, have to be very reflective on the types of role models that we give our children. So when we have nothing wrong with reggae or dancehall, anything like that, but when we find leaders in the society are saying, yeah, we can have, these people can be your role models, we have to be very careful the message that we send to young persons in our society. We have to be very careful. Because one of the things about youth is that they're very influential. And if we're saying to them as adults that, these could be your role model, these people could be, and there's nothing wrong with people being reformed. But we have to be very mindful what we tell children. And it's also what we don't tell them by just the way that we behave and what they see. And so we're seeing a lot of that, and we're seeing that kind of behavior being exhibited within our society. So the violence that we're seeing in schools is not only because they're young and they do not know how to articulate, it's also because of what they exhibit in society. They see it on the streets, they see it in the communities, and they believe that violence is just another form of communication. And I think it's very important that we are very mindful of that. When we go on social media, we see it. Our children are on the social media, they're on TikTok and all the wonderful things, but we have to teach them. We can't remove all of the bad elements in the world, but what we can do is to teach them the differences between right and wrong. And I think this is the problem with this regime. They cannot differentiate between right and wrong. It's blurred for them. So they love the idea of regathering and all that kind of fetting, but they seem not to remember that there are young persons in the society that are watching and observing what kind of leadership has been represented. And that's why I believe that we have a good leader. We have an outstanding leader because he has a clear understanding of morality and for our youth, what it means to be a good leader, what it is to project morality and moral behavior. Sometimes we'll get it right, sometimes we may not. But if we are to project a society where we expect our young persons to engage in certain types of activities, when we expect our persons to remove themselves from deviant behavior, it is very important that we understand that in our society, we need good leaders and representation for our youth. We cannot tell our youth that certain types of groups of persons are persons that you need to look at as role models. No. Even in my old age, we knew who the good role models are and who the bad ones were. The not so good. So we need to continue to teach that. So all of what we're seeing in terms of primary school, one of the things that I wanted to look at is, and one of the things the ministry does not do, is to provide the public with statistics. It is our response. We pay you. We need to know what is happening in our schools. We need to also know how our children are performing. And one of the things that I was able to pull out from the data, you look at in 2024, 2023, you'll see in terms of the full marks in mathematics. In 2023, can you imagine a child getting 35%? And in 2024, 9%. And common entrance is in a few months. So again, we will see the statistics for that. there is a decline in our education system. There's a decline in our students' performance in those areas. And why is it problematic? Because as they grow and as they develop, it will become more difficult for them to have the prerequisite for higher education. So when a child is performing at that level, when they get to secondary school, it becomes even more difficult for them to gather the concepts. And I think it's very important that the ministry, and that's why I'm appealing to our opposition leader, to ensure that those areas are highlighted, that the ministry has the responsibility to report to the public. If our children are failing in maths, English, and the sciences, tell us where. Tell us how we can help them. And also tell us, what are you doing with the money to help them? What are the interventions that you're doing for them? We cannot have our children look at maths, look at English. Comrades, these are factual data. And this is the last few years, and we can almost imagine if we continue with this government, we don't know what is going to happen. So all of those things is a very, very important to look at as well. And one of the things that we want to look at in terms of what can be done for teachers, secondary school and primary school teachers, we have to give teachers the support. They work very hard. In as much as we sometimes say, well, you know, they're a little too hard on our students, they work hard. They ensure that they do the best for our students. And also we know that our children need to have the type of intervention that is needed. So whatever kind of diagnostic testing is needed for them, let us do it for them. Let us put the money that we are allocating for the right purposes. The millions of dollars that you're saying that you're spending, let us put it the right place for our children so that our children can do better in those areas, that we have competent. Well, as I was saying to you guys, I told you that we have the right person, the right leader, one with the moral fortitude to take us where we need to go, one that we can tell our young persons, this is someone you can look up to. And these are the realities that we need to look at. So we need to have a commission, and we also need to know how those fundings are being spent, and the lack of transparency within the ministry. And one of the things that I charged the ministry, that we need the data. We need to know how our students are performing, and we need to know exactly where. If they are failing the math, tell us where. Is it arithmetic? Is it problem solving? Tell us where, so that we can help them, that we can do the intervention that is needed. Because one of the things that we know as every citizen and every member of this society, the education of our children is a gift that we give them. After life, education is a gift. And I think every parent in here, every grandparent, everyone, that we know no matter how hard it takes for us to work, we make sure that our children go to school. Yes. We make sure that we buy the books that they need. We make sure that we send them to school. We make sure that we give them something to eat. Even if we know that we have to deprive ourselves, because for us, education is a gift that we give our children. And so we cannot allow anyone, not even this government, to tarnish that gift in any way, to harm that gift in any way. So it is our responsibility, since they will not debate it in Parliament, we are asking them, we need to know where is that millions of dollars that have been allocated for those areas, that we need to find it. And we need you to tell us exactly where it is. And we will not stop, because the Democratic Labour Party is here for the people, and we will not stop. Thank you, comrades.